Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Pride and Puck podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Macdougall. It's good to be here. Good to finally have the first episode off the ground, and I've got a big one today. I'm joined by Matty Johanson from the Harbour Lights, who is the president of the club. How are you, Matty?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Andrew.
It's good to have you on, mate. You're up in the Hunter region, that correct?
Yep, about 2 hours from Sydney.
And it's going to be a nice warm one for you today.
39.
Yeah, we just had a 40-degree day down here in Victoria. And it quickly changed though. It's freezing cold now, so it's typical Victorian weather.
Yeah, what is it? 4 seasons in an hour. So
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So you've always been a sports person, mate?
yeah, so I played soccer when I was like uh, under six. Played that till I was about 8. Tried cricket, tried field hockey, could not get into field hockey. Then was playing rugby union at high school. Um, Always done like random sports. So I swam quite a bit as well, gym, surf lifesaver. Um, and yeah, played rugby for quite a while. I ended up playing in Newcastle for one of the grade teams and then played in Brisbane and then ended up playing in London for a season when I was living over there and then played for the Convicts in Sydney. So that's the inclusive team there. And then I kind of injured myself. So after that, I moved on to ice hockey, something I could do without aggravating injuries. And it was just a good, fast, inclusive sport, I found.
Were you always a fan of ice hockey before that? Was it just something that you come across?
Yeah. So when I went over to the US and Canada in 2012, I wanted to see a game, but I unfortunately went in September and none of the games started until October. But it was always sort of an underlying interest that I thought the sport was pretty awesome. And yeah, I just had this underlying desire to either want to watch it or play it. Um, at that point, I could not skate. I think I skated once when I was living in Brisbane. I was holding onto the walls the entire time. That was like 2008. And then 2014, I thought, all right, I'm going to change some gray matter in my brain. I'm going to try and challenge myself to do this. So I gave myself a month to be able to move forward and stop. And within 3 weeks of doing hockey development at Canterbury, I was able to get across the rink and stop before hitting the wall. So I was pretty proud of myself. From then, I worked my way up to do like an in-house league. So it was sort of like we all the teams had different colors. At that point, I was doing it with my partner, and it was really cool and really got me into it.
Did you ever go and watch the North Stars play in Newcastle?
Would you believe I actually haven't watched the North Stars play?
Oh, they
But I haven't made it a point to go down there to actually watch one of their competition games, but I've seen them play before one of my games. So I guess you could say I have watched them, but I haven't really gone to watch them. I did get a few tickets to the Canada versus USA when it came out. The tour that they have every
Yep.
year, yeah, usually comes to Sydney, July. Yeah, saw plays like Gretzky, which was pretty cool. Super long hair, looks really old now, but yeah.
So is there any crossover between any skills that you've taken over from rugby to ice hockey?
Yeah, actually there is. So in rugby, you need to be able to plant yourself into the ground, um, either when you're going to tackle somebody or when you're changing direction. So you need that strength within your legs and within your feet with your boots, and it's not that dissimilar from your edges on your skate when you change direction and you stop. So there are some skills, and getting and staying low. Like I've got a upper hand because I'm actually quite short. Like I'm only 165 centimeters, 166. I can say 167, but um, so in rugby it was quite good because I could get low very quickly and tackle people. In hockey, it's actually quite transferable because you've got to be nice and low to the ice as well, with your knees bent and the right posture, which gives you more power rather than standing upright. So yeah, there are skills that I've learned. Plus, handling a stick and handling a rugby ball aren't that much dissimilar. Obviously, your shoulders and your hands are in different positions, but it's that motion and that strength that you need. That's pretty transferable.
So you've gone and you've had this sort of trying ice hockey for a while. You've gone and you've done your sort of learn how to skate type of thing. You've got yourself climbing off the side of the boards, hanging onto the side of the boards. How does it go from that to finding inclusive hockey club like the Harbour Lights?
Well, yeah. So I joined some competitions when I was at Canterbury, and back in 2016. So at this point, I'd been playing hockey like in-house wise for about 2 years. And then ISU opened. So I thought I'd check that out. So ISU then had a beer league, which we used to have like garbage bins full of beer after the match or during the match. And we'd sink those and play, and it was a good social experience. It wasn't very structured. It was just kind of a loose Friday night, and then we'd usually kick on at the rink a little bit after that. But it was good to meet people that way. I think I met Stuart probably in those early days as well. I personally wanted to start a team back in 2017. When I was doing in-house, I was also playing for the Norwest Emperors at that point in Div 4. And then I signed a contract to build a house in the Hunter Valley. So that took me away from Sydney. So I moved in early 2019. That's the exact same time that Stuart and others were able to start off the Harbour Lights. So I missed that opportunity. But yeah, I was actually in Melbourne sort of July 2019 and met the Southern Lights team randomly at Molly's on Smith Street. I think I was wearing a hockey hat and somebody commented, and I was like, wow, you guys have a team? That's awesome. And then I seriously thought about moving to Melbourne at that point. Little did I know, a little bit after that, the Harbour Lights would start up as well. So when I heard that, some of the guys in the Melbourne team said, hey, these guys have just started an inclusive team. You should get in on that. So obviously living in the Hunter Valley, I can't really make games on the reg. So what I do is when we travel interstate, or if I'm in Sydney for work or any other reason, I come along and try and contribute. And from there, Stuart actually asked me to join the committee, and I thought, yeah, sure, why not? And at our last committee meeting in October, the president spot was made vacant by Haley, and I put my hand up and thought, give it a shot, see how it goes. And this is where I am now.
So what does it mean to you to be the president of a club like this? Because obviously a lot of people that come from the LGBTIQ plus community, they don't feel comfortable just going to like a regular club. What they see and what they hear at those sort of clubs, they don't feel like it's for them. What does it feel for you to be president of a club like this?
Um, it's a big responsibility to try and make sure that the way you come across to everybody that's joined the club, that you don't single anybody out. You don't act like a media whore. That you try and get everybody's perspective in the decision-making process, and also include them and give them the opportunity to share their story as well. So I think that's a really important part. I learned from being in the convicts that you need the wider team to be included more so, rather than just being numbers on a field or numbers on a rink. You need to include everybody, because everybody's story is different. Everybody's experiences are different, and everybody is important as well. So no matter if they're just learning, only been skating 6 months, or playing hockey for 6 months, or they've been playing it for 10 years, everybody's contribution is totally like valuable. So yeah, being the president, I think is I'm so chuffed. Like, yeah, I can't put it into words.
Yeah, I can see it in your face too through the Zoom that it means a lot to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So what have you seen the Harbour Lights achieve over its short time as well? Just in terms of, I suppose, registrations and tournaments and things like that.
Yeah. So what I've seen is like we're getting a lot more people who previously would like have an interest in hockey but not have the confidence to join a team. Or I've had quite a few people over the years say, oh, I can't play, I don't know how to skate, or I don't have the confidence, or I don't know what I'm doing. And my response to them is, that doesn't matter. Just get out there and have fun and enjoy and pick it up. It's actually quite easy, quite an easy sport. You don't have a hell of a lot of rules like union. Union's quite tricky. And there's a lot of different things you need to learn in union. Hockey's yeah, I won't say it's easy. It's a very intensive sport. But if you can get your brain working to work out where you need to be, where the puck's going to be, how you need to contribute to the team, get your positioning right, then you'll have a lot of fun. You'll make a great contribution, and you'll finish the game at the end with a big smile on your face, and you'll just want more and more.
Has the club been able to help you as a person, or were you always someone that was pretty confident and sort of pretty out there to get involved in different clubs?
So I'm speaking from my perspective because I present in a way that's more, I'm going to say, heteronormative. I actually find it quite hard meeting people that are also gay, because people don't think that I am, and that makes it hard because I have to come out multiple times. I don't have to come out once. I have to come out in every single job I have, in every single sporting team, to every person I meet. So I try and think of a way to subtly drop, oh, my partner, I'm currently single, but my ex-partner, for example, I'll drop that connotation into it, and people go, oh, okay, I had no idea. So being the president of the club, I think has given me the ability to openly communicate the fact that I'm the president of an inclusive hockey team. When they ask what's an inclusive, and I basically just say LGBTIQA plus, and they go, "Oh wow, that's great. That's really awesome." So it's a positive way for me to, I'm going to say, come out multiple times, but communicate to different people that yes, I am, but that's not everything about me. But it's easier to be myself, I think, because I find it hard to be myself with certain people in certain crowds. So yeah, I think this level of responsibility of being the president has brought me out of my shell more, which I think that's what we're trying to do for a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I suppose it's a reason I wanted to do this podcast too, to open up some doors for people to either talk about themselves and talk about their journey to make it a bit easier for them as well. Um, so obviously that's having the lights there is sort of, it's almost like a pivot point in conversation for you. You say that you're the president of an inclusive hockey club,
Yep.
and open the door for conversations about the club and yourself too with people.
Yeah, yeah. In a job that I've just started with state government, I mentioned I've got a hockey tournament, and I'm the president. Made it quite easy for me to communicate that, and they're like, "That's fantastic." So it is something that, yeah, as you said, a pivot point. It's actually a good thing for me.
And in the club as well, you spoke about the Southern Lights before. So you've been able to connect these two clubs along with the Australian LGBT ice hockey organisation, and you come down recently for the Pride Cup tournament um, with the Melbourne Ice Wolves in Victoria. What was that like for the club to travel down? What's it like to travel down to a different state and meet these? You know, obviously the Southern Lights are an inclusive hockey club, but you got the Ice Wolves as well. What's it like to meet these clubs, and what's that sort of mean for the club as well to connect with different people?
Yeah. Firstly, it was a long trip down and back because we carpooled down. So I had to spend 3.5+ hours on a train to get to Sydney, to then get picked up, to then drive another 8 to 9 hours just to get to Melbourne. Then to play the following day, then to drive back the day after. So
That's
yeah, it
that's
was
that's full on commitment.
yeah, that's what I could have flown, but flying with a hockey bag and a hockey stick is not easy. Um, yeah, so we did the road trip. It was good. It's good to get out of New South Wales. It was good to see how other states, other teams organize their hockey matches. How I like the fact that at the rink at Reservoir, I can say it properly, um, that they were actually very much a part of the rink. Um, what we're finding in Sydney is it's a little bit hard to get some ice time. That's down to a couple of factors. Basically, New South Wales government likes to sell off public assets to build apartments, and the rinks are still a little bit um, hesitant to include inclusive clubs. Um, so the Newcastle rink is great. They're fantastic. They're super supportive. But in Sydney, there's still this older school mentality where they don't like to include us. But coming back to Melbourne, it was great. The social aspect was brilliant. Getting to meet other players. I recently went down there in December this year, caught up with another hockey player, had a couple of beers, had a good chat. It's, yeah, the building those sort of friendships is, I think, really important. Even though everybody's in a state, It's only a short hour and a half flight. If they're in our city or we're in their city, it's always good to catch up. The opportunity is there for them to come to training with us and for us to go to training with them down there. And I think that sort of level of camaraderie in the sport and the transferability of like players to engage with either team, I think is really important for ice hockey in Australia.
And obviously, it's probably good for some people to when they come down to Victoria or they go out to New South Wales, I meet people and they're like, oh, I'm not the only one who's gone through that, or I'm not the only one who felt that, before they started ice hockey and things like that, so they can relate to each other too, and they can see themselves in other people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I found it when I was playing that I didn't really know who was or wasn't. There was a couple of people that I knew, but vast majority I wasn't sure who was similar to me. When the Harbour Lights started, there was players that I previously played with in Sydney that had moved to Melbourne, and they were in the Southern Lights or the Ice Wolves, and I'm like, oh wow, I had no idea. So that that was actually really cool, like a really refreshing moment. I'm like, that's awesome. There's other people that are of the same way as me that play hockey too. So it's really good to know that you aren't the only one. Playing in Newcastle, I know there's quite a few, but they don't openly communicate it. And I think that's not necessarily for the lack of support from the Newcastle rink. I think it's more down to the nature of people in Newcastle. They very much have relationships or things that are kept quite private and on the side. And what I'd like to do with the Harbour Lights is try and communicate to those players and other potential players that you can just be yourself. But it's 2023. No one really cares. Like, it's not a huge issue. No one's going to judge you for it. They may come up to you and say, hey, I am too. So it's something that I still think we need a bit of work to do to make people feel comfortable enough to be who they really are. I know because it took me a while as well, but yeah, I've gotten there in the end. I've got that pivot point. They don't necessarily have that.
You think it's a changing of ice hockey culture as well?
I think so, but the sport's so fresh in Australia. It's gaining momentum. I don't think there is that much of an entrenched culture. Most of the teams that play either in-house or div can be mixed. There are men's and women's teams in different leagues, but a lot of the time it's pretty much mixed. The females don't seem to have the same problems that the men have, so they need all the support that they can get as well. But I think there isn't that culture that's already in hockey, like say rugby league or AFL, where it's a very masculine, dominating type sport, and you have to be a certain way or look a certain way or act a certain way or say certain things. We don't kind of have those sort of role models in hockey that present that way. Most of the players that I've met over the years, be it North Stars, Bears, or whatnot, they're all pretty chill and they're all pretty normal. As in, like, they're not gonna try and be like they're not gonna try and stand over you. They're not gonna try and be a smart ass. They're just going to treat you like a normal person. And I think the cultures across the board is pretty good, but we need to do a little bit more on making the people that have these inner feelings of not being accepted as who they are to be more widely included and communicated to them to say, hey, it doesn't matter. It's you are who you are, and we support you for that.
And I suppose one of the ways to do that is we've touched on the Pride Cup tournament, which is those sort of tournaments get the clubs out there and visible to community, people who are just maybe wandering through the rink. They'll see Southern Lights or Harbour Lights, and they might do a Google and try and find out who those clubs are. But for the Harbour Lights, you've got a big week coming up with the Pride on Ice, which is February 23rd and 24th, I think.
Yep, that's correct.
With Sydney World Pride. How excited are the club? How excited are the Harbour Lights for Pride on Ice coming up?
Oh, I have to say, those that have done the work have done a fantastic job. I'm so proud of everybody. Like, it's just been, I'm lost for words about how much we've achieved in such a relatively short period of time. We were only able to start promoting it back in November last year. That was a Sydney World Pride condition. And from then, we've just gone from strength to strength and achieved so much. We have a fully organised competition over 2 days, the Macquarie Ice Rink. We've got jerseys, socks for the players. We've got international players. We've got players coming from all over the world, mainly North America. There's interstate players. I think there's a player from Perth coming, Brisbane. There's some from Melbourne. We would have liked to have had more from Melbourne, unfortunately, but you guys weren't able to come up. And then, I'm just trying to think of the most out there place we've got somebody coming from. I think there was somebody coming from Europe as well. So that'll be amazing. And when I introduce everybody on the day, I want to mention all the countries where everybody's come from and just say thank you so much for coming out to Australia, and coming to Sydney. This is going to be an epic tournament, and I'm excited. You can tell.
So what goes into organising something like this? Like behind the scenes for Harbour Lights to get, because obviously, as you just mentioned, you've got people from all around the world. They're coming into Sydney and you're trying to organise all these different people and getting people to the tournament and things like that. What goes into organising this sort of event?
Yeah, so we've had quite a few committee meetings. So I've only been on 2 committee meetings since I started. Obviously, we had the Christmas New Year period, which didn't really help. Everything kind of just shuts down. We essentially worked out what we need to do, what we need to communicate internationally, how we need to promote it, what items we need to get for the actual tournament, agreements with a rink, which is Macquarie, which is fantastic. It's one of the best rinks in Sydney. Unfortunately, we don't have an O'Brien ice house, so it's a shopping centre rink for us. But it's a really good rink, and it's quite big too. So I'm in the back end. We kind of all sat down in early December and worked out, okay, we're going to need this, we're going to need that, we're going to need to organize this and that. There is a heap of detail, so I don't want to go into the detail. But everybody basically picked up a task and started to work through it, and work through it efficiently and Um, really pragmatically, it was really impressive to see the communication between everybody, the way in which we've documented it, getting other people's opinions to make the decisions was yeah, really well done. And yeah, so if we had an extra 2 or 3 months, we could have made it a lot bigger, but obviously time constraints. What we've got, I think, is absolutely fantastic. We don't need something that's massive, but we do have people from all over the world. And I would have loved to have maybe even a half team from somewhere in, say, Canada, or a few more players from Europe. That would have been really cool. And also, we've organised social events too. So what we're trying to concentrate on is fostering the love of hockey for everybody, either local or international. So we've actually got on the Thursday night a movie screen. So we're trying to break the ice. Excuse the pun. um, to get people engaged. So basically, they don't just show up for the tournament and then go home or wonder, oh, what do I do now? We've tried to establish, activities and what the city has to offer and how everybody can be engaged with everyone. What I'd like to do on the night is try and get everybody to say hello to everybody. Just walk around the rink, say, hey, I'm from here or I'm from there, and introduce themselves just so it's more of an inclusive event that everybody knows everybody.
Yeah. And these people that are coming from overseas, do you know if they're involved in inclusive hockey clubs themselves overseas, or is it a mixture of just normal clubs and stuff like that?
They are involved, and that's the exciting part of it. So I'll have the opportunity to speak to these people. I've been emailing them, but actually to talk to them face to face, I'm actually quite excited about. They're probably going to love our accents, which I think is great. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it's done, say for Toronto, for example, or San Fran. Those are two very inclusive cities. I've been to both, and they're amazing cities. Sydney is quite a representative city in LGBTIQA plus attitudes, but I don't see it in everyday culture in Sydney. Whereas in San Fran and in Toronto, it's more widely accepted. It's more ingrained in society. So seeing how those teams tackle that, I think can give us some ideas as well.
Yeah, so it's not only holding a tournament, it's networking for Harbour Lights. It's
Yeah,
going to be
absolutely. I would love in a year or two to really build the team up so we feel quite confident to head over to maybe a handful of cities, and then play some tournaments internationally. I think that would be fantastic. I think that's something we could probably work towards with LGBT Hockey Australia and the Southern Lights and the Ice Wolves, and hopefully at some point there's a team in Brisbane. I'm hoping as well to potentially get a team in Newcastle. Newcastle has a really strong ice hockey culture, so it is actually prime for creating an inclusive team here. Like I know quite a few players that would jump on board.
Has Australian LGBT ice hockey helped the Lights with this tournament, Pride and Ice? So they've sort of been involved. They just sort of let you go ahead with it.
Yeah, so it's our responsibility to deliver it. They've helped, they've given us assistance, but ultimately we've driven it to realization. So yeah, they've definitely helped. But it's something that we've taken very seriously, and we're actually quite proud to show off our city as well. As you guys showed off Melbourne, we're going to show off Sydney in New South Wales.
It's a good segue into the last one. Is what's the proudest moment that you've had at Harbour Lights, either as player or president?
Ooh, I think we had a pride game last year in June, which was actually the first time I played with the Lights. So I'd seen them play before. Oh no, actually, sorry, it was the Mardi Gras game that we had back in March last year. It was the first time that I got on the ice with the team. The ice isn't fantastic and it's a small rink, but it was really good to see everybody come together and really just play as a team and really enjoy what they were doing. That was the first time I was able to play with them. So it sort of was a culmination of years of wanting to start an inclusive team and then finally playing on an inclusive team. And then networking and meeting everybody else. It was, yeah, I was quite chuffed that day.
Well, Matty, thanks for coming on the podcast, mate. You're the number one episode, so you're going to be at the top of the list now forever. If Pride and Puck podcast and becomes a massive ESPN podcast or something. But yeah, thanks for coming on, mate, and good luck with Pride on Ice. Yeah, and I'd love to have you back on again at some stage.
Yeah, I'd love to come back as well. That'll be brilliant. Pride on Ice. If you want to come down and see some hockey, we've got players from East Coast Super League all the way down to people that have only played one or two games. So you'll get a really good experience and exposure to what it's like to start your hockey journey and to finish up being at that elite level. So yeah, it's going to be a brilliant tournament, and there's going to be lots of fun to be had, lots of cool people to meet. Everybody's going to say hello to you, so don't be shy. Yeah, just come and enjoy. I'd like to say thanks to all the Harbour Lights that have done this immense amount of work. To everybody that's travelled from interstate or another country, thank you for coming. To Macquarie for hosting us, that's awesome. There's probably some more sponsors I should mention, but I didn't write them down, so I do apologize. And yeah, just on the day, be yourself, have fun, enjoy, play some good hockey, and meet some other people that are similar to you.
So get down to the Macquarie Ice Rink and have a blast.
Yep, 23rd, 24th. We start at 12 o'clock on the 23rd, go through till 5:30 p.m. On the 24th, we start at 3 p.m., go through till 8. The Friday evening is going to be essentially the playoffs. So, yeah, get down for that if you can. Register for spectator tickets online, Harbour Lights Ice Hockey. Search Pride on Ice online on Facebook or wherever. You'll be able to find us. Andrew will probably post a link to it. So, yeah, follow that link. But get down there.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for coming on, and good luck with Pride and Ice.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.